Let's go. Yeah. For those of you that want to know what we're all about, it's like this, y'all. This is 10% luck, 20% skill, 15% concentrated power of will, 5% pleasure, 50% pain, and 100% reason to remember the name.
Hello and welcome to another episode here at West Coast Dogman Project. I'm your host, Shane Michael Crisp, and I'm joined today with special co-host Todd Metz. Todd, how you doing today, brother?
Good, man. What's happening, Shane?
Oh, not a whole lot. First interview on a Saturday morning. It's a little different, so pretty excited for this.
Yeah, it's definitely different for you, I'm sure, because everyone you do is in the evening. And hey, hopefully, when we speak to the guest, he has some good information to tell us. It'll be all worth it.
Yeah, definitely. And for the folks that are viewing right now, Will, our guest, is running a little late, so he'll be here when he can. But he's got, I believe it was 4 or 5 dogman encounters in Arizona that he's recently had.
Yeah, I think he's definitely got a couple there that are pretty interesting. Hopefully, he can share that information with us and kind of give us an overview of what really happened out there in the desert.
Yeah, I'm definitely stoked to hear about it because, my good buddy Ryan Tremblay had a dogman encounter in Arizona. I think it was in 2018 or 2019, and it was with a hyena variant. So it seems like the hyena variant's just seen across the United States. It's not just a territorial type thing. So, but anyways, enough of that. Todd, you wanted to explain? I don't know is this your first time ever doing a live podcast?
Yeah, it's first time on a live podcast for sure, and I'm only shaking just a little bit, so not we'll get by the jitters and stuff, and hopefully we'll be good.
Yeah, you want to explain a little bit about what got you into the dogman phenomenon and when you started researching the beast?
Yeah, so I went down the rabbit hole, I think about 5 years ago or so. I started just popping around on the internet and seeing some stuff that was showing up on it, and watched a couple of videos back in the day. Got interested in listening to Linda Godfrey as the queen of the cryptids, and Linda, rest in peace for sure. We all miss her, and
Yes.
and it's really sad what happened to her last year. But it was about 5 years ago that I started to get into this phenomenon and try to figure it out. And still learning a ton of stuff. Like I say, and you've said it a number of times that and other podcasters, other researchers have said it that this is, no one is an expert in this field. We're all in the same bucket of trying to figure out what this is, and like I've said a number of times on our Facebook pages, to try to coax people into who have had encounters. I haven't personally, but I try to encourage people to share their stories, and certainly with sites that you and I have, we want to make sure that people can do that without fear of being harassed or ridiculed, and that's not acceptable, and we'll make sure that doesn't happen. So the more, I think, the comfortability factor with people, being able to talk about their experiences is really good, because the more data that we could gather, the closer we'll be to figuring this thing out.
Exactly. And like you said it best, we're not in this, nobody's an expert in this. Certain people will say, hey, this is that. It's all theory based. There's until science can prove it, which I don't think science ever will prove this creature to be, an actual creature. Just with the government, and it all comes down to money and the national forest. It's just so much about it. But like you said, the more data we can collect on this creature, and we get that videographic footage that's crystal clear. I think we're just at a concrete wall right now. I mean, with the prints that I've seen, or some of them are just phenomenal. But then there's some that people are just mistaken. Oh, it's just a wolf, or it's just a bear. We don't know. So that's why we cast it. And that's why we try to do boots on the ground investigations as much as we can. Todd, now you're up there in Washington. Do you plan on going out to the national park? I know Washington's a huge Sasquatch area. So do you have any
Oh
plans
yeah.
in the near future to go out or investigate?
Yeah, so we'll take the truck out and probably hit some of the logging trails and stuff. Up in the state forest, and then there's Olympic National Forest here, which is from what I understand, is a huge Bigfoot hotspot. I'm not a Sasquatch researcher, so I don't know exactly what's happening up there, but from what I have heard, it's pretty prevalent up here, and I'm really not that far from it. So I think like we were talking before, where there's dogmen or where there's the Sasquatch, there's most likely dogman activity. And I know you have mentioned it, and other researchers have mentioned it, that misidentification is a huge part of this thing. People, of course, when you see something like this, I'm sure that it's like, your eyes just can't process, your brain can't process what your eyes are seeing sometimes. So it's got to be, pretty horrific if you're up close and personal with one of these creatures. So, I definitely want to get out there, check it out, see if there's spots that, in my view, would be good spots for these creatures to be found. So we'll see what happens.
And like you said, so where there's a Bigfoot, there's normally is dogman. And Todd, you just recently became the state representative for Washington for the North American Dogman Project.
Yeah, definitely. So that's pretty cool, and hopefully we can start to get some more people giving us some encounters from the Pac Northwest and Northern California, like your area and stuff, and Cal and Oregon, and another Sasquatch hotspot state, obviously in the Sierras, and up here in the Pacific Northwest. Hopefully we can get
congratulations on that role.
Yeah.
And I was on an interview the other night with Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio, and he'd asked me, "Have you guys been getting a lot of reports?" And I told him, no, not a whole lot. It's been quiet on the West. But he's like, hey, it's just, it will come. Because we've only been doing this. I mean, you've only lived in Washington for a little over less than a year, right? And I've just only been in the dogman phenomenon for the last year myself. So, but we've got a few reports in. I mean, that's how you were able to get in contact with our guest today with Will. So, I mean, they're slowly coming in. I think that, and then that Joe Casillas down in the LA area said that he'd seen dogmen in the area and posted it on the neighborhood app.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So let's hope for the best, and it get some people, who do see these things to be comfortable, because I know, it's not an easy thing to talk about, especially if you've not seen one of these things before, and, it's like, oh my God, who the heck do I tell, and explain this to them, and, they can always go to the North American Dogman Project and enter their data in there, and we keep collecting it and analyzing it. Footprints, hair samples, scat. If you're out there, you see something unusual, take a picture of it. And most people can't go out in the woods and they don't walk around with a plaster of Paris casting set in their backpack, ready to catch the footprint. But hey, if you start getting interested in it, you're out there walking the trails and come to some spots where, especially near, riverbanks, sandy, areas, marshy areas where footprints, or show up, look down. Look up. I mean, these things are in trees, they're leaving prints, and get, one thing I like to tell people is, kind of get familiar with different animals' footprints, kind of know what you're looking at. Plus it's fun, you go out, that's a raccoon track. Oh, that's a deer track. That's an elk track. That's a bear track. It's got 5 toes. Oh, there's a canine, or a mountain lion. Hopefully he's passed a little bit earlier than when you went by, but because I spent a lot of time in Montana, and there's some big cats out there and some big bears, but so that's just some fun stuff to do when you're out in the woods.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like you said, you're not on electronics or anything like that. You're, carrying plaster of Paris is pretty heavy. So I don't know a whole lot
Yeah.
of people that pack it in unless you know of
No.
a certain area. One thing I recommend carrying in your travel bag sounds kind of dumb, but is little flags that kind of like how the PG&E or the electric company will mark out a line. I've seen people do, like almost like an investigation kit where they flag it. I mean, if you see a really compelling track and you're not too far from your vehicle, and if you are carrying plaster of Paris, maybe just flag it and say, hey, there's the print, and just go back and do that. I personally
Yeah.
don't carry plaster of Paris. I just carry my
Yeah.
cell phone, and I have one recording on my chest and the other one I'm snapping
Mhm.
photos. So, but
Yeah,
Tom,
exactly.
I wanted, you said you were a game warden back in Connecticut, right? Years
I
ago?
was, yeah, back in the 90s. I got a gig as a part-time game warden in Connecticut, and worked a few areas in central and eastern Connecticut for about almost 12 years part-time.
Mhm.
I had a full-time job, and this was a part-time gig.
Mhm.
Went to the police academy in Meriden, and subsequently started doing that. And I mean, I spent a lot of time out in the woods as a kid, hunting, fishing in Connecticut, and where I grew up. Never saw anything unusual to that respect. So I did see some unusual tracks that I couldn't identify, and unfortunately, I didn't get any pictures because back in the day, we didn't have cell phones and stuff. I walked around with a 35 millimeter camera in my vehicle, so I could take pictures of evidence and things like that. But didn't have the wherewithal to go down and snap some pictures of those things. But there were some unusual tracks, and you know, so yeah, I'm pretty used to the woods, and been out there for a long time. Not so much anymore as I've got older, but
Mhm.
it's all good stuff, and yeah,
Well, that's
spent some
awesome to
time doing
hear.
that.
So you've got experience being a game warden and knowing what to look for, evidence and stuff. So that's another perk that you have. As soon as the snow melts and the weather gets better up there in Washington, I
Yeah,
definitely hit up the Olympic National Park, and hopefully you'll find some stuff. I know you'll, at least I know, like you said, you're not a Bigfoot guy. I'm not really either. I, do have a page for the, West Coast Sasquatch, because I think
hmm,
every cryptid should have its own page dedicated to it. But I think that's what we're
sure,
doing at West Coast Dogman. We try to keep it dogman related, and just, hey, whatever evidence you have or want to talk about, we try to share it to the respective pages. I think that with what you've got going, and the whole Linda Godfrey, what got you into it. Speaking of Linda Godfrey, yesterday was her birthday, so happy
yeah.
heavenly birthday, Linda.
Exactly. Yeah. Rest in peace, Linda. You're definitely missed by the community and others. So it's she had her own theories on what this thing was. Obviously, some sort of an upright walking canid, and what did she call it? Oh my goodness. I can't think of the name that she used to call these things when she first kind of started to research this, and said, well, I don't really think it's a werewolf. I don't really believe in that type of thing,
Mhm.
and I'm not saying that they don't exist, but that wasn't her theory. And
Yeah.
so, looking at her stuff, it made a lot of sense to me. And when you start reading all of the reports out of, Michigan and Wisconsin, you know, it seemed like it was Dogman Central there and maybe it still is for a long time. But
Mhm.
I think, since she's been gone and there's so much material that she wrote about it, it seems like we need some more researchers up in that area to really start coming forward more, because, once she's gone, somebody else has to kind of pick up the slack in those, because there's so many sightings, and, the Manistee, National for I'm not sure if the Manistee is a national forest or a state forest, but
Mhm.
so many sightings and whatnot in those areas. And then, of course, southeastern Wisconsin, where she was from, with Bray
Yes.
Road and whatnot. And like you and I have talked about, Bray Road is still, the big hitter, in my mind. And there's so many sightings and so much good evidence with, I forget the fellow's name, Lee Hempel, I
Lee
think,
Hempel, yes.
in in Elkhorn, gathering data and information and whatnot over the years. So I think there's still a lot of undiscovered information out there that needs to be discovered.
I agree. And Lee Hample's property is still an active area. I know that our Region 2 director, Donna Lees Wells Fink, she goes and frequents that and goes to his property and goes from there and does investigations and stuff. So she's very active off that. So, hey, it looks like Will just chimed in. So let me add him to the stream. All right. Hey, what's up, Will?
What's going on, boys? How's it going?
Good to see you, brother. Thanks for taking time out of your day to do this.
Yeah, no worries.
So,
hey, Will, how you doing?
Pretty good, guys.
Good.
Yeah, awesome. Like I said, this is a true honor of ours, Will. If you can give us a brief bio on yourself.
I just, I don't know. I kind of grew up outside and outdoors with my dad and my family. So, my mom's more or less the one that's into like Bigfoot, aliens, all that kind of a thing. So growing up, my whole thing growing up was always werewolves, I guess, was always my thing.
Mm.
And then as I got older is when I learned about like dogmen and everything else. And that's when I fell into that. I guess I fell down the rabbit hole for that one.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's a deep rabbit hole, Will. But hey, you've had some encounters, and that's what you're here for. We want you to talk about those, and feel free to take as much time as you need to kind of lay that thing out, lay those encounters out for us, and tell everybody what happened to you.
So my first encounter was a visual one, and it's one of those things you don't ever expect to really come across. Like you see it on TV, you see it on YouTube, you see it on everything else, and you don't really expect to I guess ever happen to you. So I was out with a couple of buddies out east of here at a place called Sycamore Creek. And normally it's kind of a wild place on a Friday and Saturday night. It's normally very, very, it's kind of a circus as far as the off-roading community goes. So, me and a couple of buddies went out on a Sunday night instead because we had the following Monday and Tuesday off. We had like a 4-day weekend. So we're like, we'll go out on a quiet night, Sunday night, and just kind of relax. We don't need to go nuts, do anything wild. And we went out, and there's a herd of wild horses out there known as the saguaro wild horses, and they're protected. You can't do anything with them, but they like to go over into the thickets that are across the wash, and that's where they usually bed down at nighttime. So we stayed across the wash, stayed away from them, and then all of a sudden, middle of nowhere, we all kind of look up, and we just heard them crashing and blowing out of the thickets like something was after them. So we all flipped on our off-road headlights to kind of shine over there, and for a brief second, you just saw this red eye shine, and then saw a 7-foot tall creature standing up and just staring at us from across the wash for a brief moment. And then, Glacy. And then from there, it backed into the darkness and left. And me and my buddies looked at each other and we're like, did you see what I think we saw 60 yards from us? And both of us, me and my buddies, looked at each other and said, all agreed that we saw what we saw.
Wow. So, now, what did the creature look like? Did you get a good view of it? Did it have a German Shepherd look to it, or was it hyena, or what color?
It was more or less like probably closer to a hyena.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm. So we're talking, was it tall ears and the typical, shorter snout like a hyena would have type of thing?
Yeah, short ears, short snout.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what type of leg structure did it have? Did it have the hominid type leg structure or the digitigrade, backwards bending knee?
Yeah, probably it. Like I said, like it was what it could have been a hybrid too, for all I know, because
Mhm.
it had your typical dogman appearance, but with the short nose, short ears, short snout, short ears.
Mhm. And you got eye shine and stuff from your overheads on the four wheel on your trucks, right?
Yep.
That's when you first saw it. Yeah. So do you think that that was just the eye shine, or do you think were these things? Did you turn the overheads off at one point to try to still see it, or you know,
So
you know?
our plan for that night was to basically camp out over there, and then in the morning, just kind of go start exploring, hit trails, whatever else. But after that,
Yeah.
once it left into the darkness, we didn't even camp out. We just packed up and left at that point.
Yeah, it's probably what I would have done at that point too. So, was there prior to this? I don't think you mentioned that. It probably didn't happen. But was there any vocalizations from this thing? Any noise at
None.
all? None, huh? Yeah.
None.
So he was just. Do you think he or she was, just kind of popped in to see what you guys were up to, or do you think he was on? He was there for a while and kind of checking you guys out for, from a stalking standpoint.
I think we interrupted a predation on a wild horse is what we interrupted, and it. Like, if you ever, do you guys have pet dogs?
Yes.
Okay, so have you ever interrupted your dog when it's in the middle of doing something that it's focused on, and it just gives you a look of like disappointment or like really irritation, kind of look in its eyes?
Yep.
That's
Sure.
the exact look that this dog man gave us.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Like, really?
Well,
Yeah.
what year was your first encounter? When did this happen? Do you remember the exact year and time of date and all that?
I want to say November of 2018.
Oh, wow. So just recent, 5 years ago.
So, Will, when you first started telling us about the encounter, you mentioned the location, but you're in. Give us a geographic spot on the map as far as. So is this Arizona, right?
Mhm.
North Central.
So Sycamore Creek, the best way to say Sycamore Creek is it's due southwest of Four Peaks Mountain by maybe, actually better yet, if you go over to Saguaro Lake, and you go dead west for about 30 minutes. From a four-wheel drive standpoint, going slow, it's about 30 minutes west of Saguaro Lake.
Mm-hmm. So, what's the topography like? Is it scrub? Is it pure, high desert? What are we looking at as far as topography?
High desert. And so, knowing how most people have seen and described Dogman to having that thick, shaggy, long hair, if you go from where I lived at the time and dropped down into the wash of Sycamore Creek, you have a drop in temperature from maybe 60 to 70 degrees outside of there, and the temperature will drop down to 45, 50, no problem. And that's within maybe 900 feet.
Wow.
Yeah.
What do you think the temperature was when you guys were out there? Was it a chilly night?
Oh yeah.
Or
The
what?
temperature
Yeah,
was like
so it was pretty
degrees.
cold.
It was
Yeah.
like 40
Okay.
degrees.
So it's pretty cold.
Wow.
And everything else was pretty clear. There wasn't any, no rain, no nothing, huh? Just a clear night.
Just a clear, crisp night.
Yeah.
I've also learned too, recently, within the last maybe week or so, that a lot of people that have been spotting Dogman are in a lot of high populated areas of elk territory, especially out here in the Southwest, from what I understand. And knowing that if I go an hour north, from where I live now, if I go 2.5 hours northeast from here, but if I'm at Sycamore Creek and I go an hour north into Payson, there's a monstrous elk population up there.
Wow.
And recently, within the last couple of days, there was a story I came across where a guy was elk hunting and had a lone cow elk sprint past him within maybe 100 yards or less. He said it was being chased by something. Well, whatever was chasing it, which he described was 8 feet tall, long pointy ears, essentially a werewolf is what he described it, because he had never seen one before or heard of one before, stopped and looked at him for a brief moment and then looked towards where the elk was going and then proceeded to go chasing down the elk still. I believe that was in either Idaho or Utah, from what I understand. So knowing
Well,
that... Go ahead.
Every time you hear Utah, you know what you think of. You know, it's always Skinwalker Ranch, or that upper Utah, basin. So, who knows? All kind of crazy stuff out that way. And it seemed like there'd be more reports and whatnot too coming out of Idaho. Hey, Shane, just an aside, have you seen many reports coming out of the Idaho area? I haven't seen. Kind of surprising to me.
Yeah, so I was just talking to Dave Scott out of the other day on Wednesday night with Spaced Out Radio, and I was reading in the comments after the interview, and there was a gentleman that had said that there was 3 recent dogman encounters in the state of Idaho. So, and I believe Dev Rooney, the former Region 1 director, she actually took a report from someone in Idaho. I think it was early last year. So, I mean, there is activity seen throughout the West. So,
And like I said, if you go from the Phoenix Mesa Metroplex area, which is where I'm at, and that Metroplex spans the valley from the White Tank Mountains, for me, which are right there, and then you go clear across the valley, which is maybe at most in a car at speed, you're looking at maybe a 30 to 45-minute drive max to the East Valley, to the Superstition Mountain Range, which is in my mom's backyard.
Sure, that's up towards Flagstaff, that area, right?
No, that would be clear across the east side of the valley.
Okay, so that's more south.
So Flagstaff, Flagstaff for me is dead north up off the 17.
Okay, all right. So that's a couple hours away then, probably.
Right.
Yep. Okay.
Hey, Will, how far are you from the Mogollon Rim?
It's probably a good 3.5 hour drive.
Oh, okay. So it's pretty far from you then, because I know there's a lot of activity in the Mogollon Rim with Sasquatch and reported dogman sightings too. So now, do you want to explain to us the second encounter you had and what year and date and time?
So the second encounter I had was in May of 2019.
Mm-hmm.
I had gone up to Flagstaff to the Overland Expo that's held over in Coconino Park. And instead of paying the extra, $200 or $300+ to camp with inside the expo, a lot of me and my buddies prefer to go camp in the dispersed camping up off of Munns Road or Munns Park. And that's kind of it's a densely pine forested area for the most part. So the spot I found was just a good spot that I could fit my rock crawler into and not really have anyone bug me or, get my dog to rile up. So I've got 4 dogs. I've got Khaleesi out here with me right now. She's the smallest. She's a 35-pound pit bull. I've got an American bulldog who's also a rescue. I've got a Hades, which Hades is inside sleeping. I'm not going to really go bug him. He weighs 220 pounds. He's 95%
Wow.
Gray Wolf, 5% German Shepherd.
So you're a
So-
dog. You're a big dog lover. The rescuing and taking in dogs, and you have a 95% wolf. That's pretty awesome. 220 pounds. That's a huge.
He's all black with very, very light German Shepherd brindling in his fur.
Mhm.
And because of his yellow eyes, when I first got him, I got him and he was like maybe 15 pounds. He was a couple months old. I didn't really know what to name him. And at the time, he was very, very, he's not dumb, but he was basically like your typical puppy. Just very, very rambunctious and ridiculous. So at the time, I was sitting with my, I'd say little sister at the time. She's all grown up now, but we were watching Disney's Hercules. And every time Hades would say something, he would look up at the TV and look at Hades. And I was like, all right, I know what we're going to name you.
Perfect name.
But he was the one, and he's not scared of anything, by the way. He's 100% guard dog. Like once we get our horses moved to our backyard here, once that's all complete, he'll be out here with them at nighttime to kind of keep an eye on them. So, I woke up in the morning and took him out to go to the bathroom, and all of a sudden he walked 10 yards in front of me, stopped, and was sniffing the ground, or sniffing that 4.5 to 5 inch paw print, which is about the size of my hand. My hand's about 5 inches. From base of my hand to the tip of my middle finger is about 5 inches. So he sniffed that, and all of a sudden, for how big he is, to submissively crouch down and lay down on all fours with his tail between his legs really threw me off. And I just wasn't, it's not something he ever does. Ever. So as I saw the paw print, I kind of looked and I was like, well, maybe let's track it. Let's see what we could find. So we walked another 50 to 60 yards away from camp into the pines, and up in Flagstaff, they do it's not a, instead of doing a, pre-fire season backburn, all the potential fire hazard trees, they basically just cut them down and let the monsoon season soak them up into the ground and everything like that to kind of prevent wildfires from happening. So on one of the tree stumps, in the center of the tree stump was sitting a single disc from a bull elk spine, which is sitting in the middle of it.
Interesting.
So after that, I kind of was looking around. We weren't really seeing any other tracks. We just saw that one track in that one little spot of mud, and then everything after that was just hard packed dirt and rock. So getting a footprint, just any other tracks, was not going to happen. So I grabbed him because he started getting real weird. Hades started getting real cautious, and when he starts doing that is when I'm like, all right, let's back out and leave. So we went back to camp, packed it up, finished up the expo, then came home. And then from there, I remember there's a guy on YouTube that does dogman encounters all the time, is all he posts, from people telling their stories. I remember a lady talking about how she thinks dogmen will kind of pick people and learn from them, or at least try to learn from them, because her husband heard something walking around on the roof of their house, and when he went outside to I guess go investigate or see what it was, said the dogman leaped off the roof and basically stood right at the edge of the wood line, and when he pointed his gun at it, he heard an audible don't from the dogman, and the dogman turned and then ran into the forest. So, well, maybe this one dogman that I encountered back in 2018, maybe it caught my scent or something, and maybe it's been following me around and learning from me. I don't know, because After that, my next encounter was back over at Four Peaks, and I was just out bow hunting by myself solo for coyotes, because if you hold a fur bearing license in Arizona, you can go nuts on coyote and you can turn around and sell the pelts, which there's still a huge fur trade in America. And actually one of the biggest auctions is right up in Colorado for furs. So I had spotted on my spotting scope about 1.5 miles away, I spotted a mule deer carcass. Couldn't really get a clear picture of it. I just knew, due to the color of the pelt and the antlers on it, that it was a mule deer. There's about 20 coyotes around it, and I was like, I'll start heading that way and see what I can pick off. And maybe about 1/4 mile into my hike, I just had this real deep, low growl hit me, and I actually felt it through my chest, and I stopped. And I was like, that's not a black bear growl. Not even close. And I was like, in the time of the year, it was a bit too warm for a black bear to be this low out of the mountains, out of Payson. So I stopped and I looked around, didn't really see anything, but kind of caught like a skunky odor. And that's when more knowledge memories clicked in my head from watching people describe what they smelled from the dogmen and Sasquatch and other things that they encountered. It's always a skunky smell. I didn't see a single skunk that morning at all. And I had just gotten off work at 6:30 in the morning from Allegiant Airlines at Mesa Gateway Airport. So I was like, it's not jet fuel. It's not an airplane smell that I normally would smell in my warehouse. So I was looking around and I didn't see any skunks or anything anywhere. So I was like, all right, I'm just going to pack it up and call it a day. And as I was walking down, all the cottontails, all the ground squirrels, everything I had seen prior to hearing that growl were out and about. Now all of a sudden they're gone. And the ones that were remaining were just diving down into their burrows after looking around and smelling the air. They were all diving down in their burrows and their warrens and whatever else. So I was like, all right, well, something else is out here and I can't see it, so I'm out of here. I'm leaving. And I was like, let me pull out the spotting scope and maybe see if there's maybe another trail or something I can go around and get up to get to that deer carcass. Well, by the time I got back to my car, my truck, pulled out my spotting scope and looked back in that same area, that same herd of coyotes or pack of coyotes is basically scattering. They're like cockroaches gone. I was like, right, well, I don't know what's out here, but I don't want to be around if it's hunting. I don't want to be around to see what happens. So I packed up all my stuff and left.
Yeah, you get that feeling, and you got to react to it. And sometimes it's best to get the heck out of the area before something else happens that you don't want.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And like I told you, I think I told you guys individually on Messenger, but my recent encounter was here at my house in Waddell. And that was at this time, maybe 3.5 weeks ago. Now,
Wow.
maybe a month ago now. And that was when me and my wife had laid down at nighttime, going to bed, and you just heard this reverberal growl come through the walls of our house and kind of shake everything. And like I've showed you guys before in that other video, my house is surrounded by security lights that just flash on and off if motion's detected. Well, my light over here, my light over here kept flashing on and off constantly. And then my light right up over here was doing the same thing. So my wife is like, what was that? And I just looked at her and I'm like, you felt that and heard that too? And she just kind of got this look in her face like, yeah. I'm like, well, don't move. I was like, the dogs, for whatever reason, aren't barking. Hades is all of a sudden up in bed with us. So I was like, okay, something's outside. I'm not going to go outside and see what it is. Just go to sleep. Whatever it is will be gone by morning probably. And I take my dogs out in the morning to go to the bathroom before I leave for work at about no paw prints, nothing anywhere. So whatever was out here was just really irritated. They couldn't really get around to do anything without lights flashing on and off. And the first time I learned that dogmen don't like lights, it was about the guy that was up in upstate New York off Coffee Road, where every time he would stop, the dogman would back out of the brake lights of his Jeep real quick. So I was like, okay, well, whatever lights keep flashing on and off are pissing this thing off. Whatever's outside is getting real pissed off that lights keep flashing on and off in its face, probably. So, and ever since then, I haven't seen, heard, smelled nothing goofy since then. So maybe it's keeping its distance. And my neighbor's lot over next to me over here, he's got a big oak tree that's got pretty good coverage on it. I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah, we can see that.
Yep, you can see it good. Yeah, thanks for showing the area there.
So if you follow that tree back behind the white fence from my neighbor's house behind me, and you follow that straight out, that's basically an open wash that anything could use to go back up into the mountain range for the White Tank Mountains. So I don't know. I don't know if I'm one of those people that is getting followed by one. I don't know. But those are
Well, you stated that the creature you'd seen would look kind of hyena variant. Do you think this is the same exact one that's followed you through the other 3 encounters, or when you were out bow hunting? Do you think it's the same creature?
I think so, because the smell's been the same every single time. There's been no change in the smell that I've had in the air. When I catch the wind, the smell is the same every single time. That musky, light skunk scent every time.
Wow.
Yeah, it just refreshed my memory, Will, from the second encounter to this one by your house. What's the time span? Is it
a couple of months, a few months?
Well, that's really interesting on what you're talking about with these things possibly coming in and entailing you, and wanting to know more about you in particular for some reason. With that short amount of time span, my feeling is that's what they're up to as well. And the other thing too is, we've heard a lot about intimidation. These things like to intimidate people, like to scare people. And yeah, who knows? Maybe that's what they got in mind.
I've kind of treated it as though it's a wild animal, regardless of it being a cryptid animal. It's still a wild animal essentially. And I found out the people that get messed with by animals or predators are the people that go and overstep their bounds or overstep their envelope just to get a closer look. I've never done that. I've just done things to kind of protect my house and my home and my animals, and that's pretty much all I've done. So,
well, if that theory holds true,
I've never had an aggressive encounter with any with any cryptid. So, all my aggressive encounters have been out hunting black bear and mountain lion. That's pretty much the only aggressive times I've had with any animals that are predators. So
yeah, especially with a mountain lion, they're going to stalk you until they get you and rip your throat out. But yeah, it's an interesting thought process, and you're absolutely right.
Fun fact about mountain lions: a lot of people. This is actually a new discovery of mountain lions too. There was a family walking in California in Lake Tahoe down towards the beach, and the 3-year-old little girl walked by towards the beach. Her 8-year-old brother was 50 yards behind her, and then the mountain lion pounced on him. So that happened, researchers discovered that mountain lions will actually look at you and figure out if you're worth the effort or not before they go decide to pounce or do anything. That's why that's why people that have these little beagles and bloodhounds that are out tracking mountain lions and pushing them up into trees for hunters, mountain lions don't want the effort to fight a pack of retarded dogs. They just don't want to do it.
Right. Well, they're opportunists and they don't want to get injured. They've got to live. So, they're not going to take any undue chances.
I agree.
For sure. Well, those are great encounters. Thank you for sharing those with us, for sure. And like I said, the more data we can gather, the closer we are to try to figure out this what this thing is. And those are some great encounters, and it's much appreciated that you shared them with us and whatnot.
And Will, like you stated,
sure.
that the security lights pissing it off. It almost reminds me of the Palmyra, Maine incident where the gentleman was trying to leave his house and he was standing in the light, and the dogman wouldn't get close to it at all. And so, like you said, your security lights, I think, definitely pissed it off and kept it away. So, seems like security lights, bright lights, they say irritate these things or keep them out of the area. So. But yeah, Will, I appreciate you. We appreciate you coming on, taking time out of your day to tell us about your encounters, and look forward to talking to you more.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me on. I really enjoyed it.
True pleasure of ours.
Thanks a lot, Will. Much appreciated. We'll talk to you soon, brother.
Talk to you guys soon.
Thanks again.
Take care.
Anytime. See ya.
Well, that was a fun, very compelling interview with Will. He's an outdoorsman, so he's a hunter. He does it all. He's seen it all. So
yeah, absolutely. And one thing I've learned in the past, with being a warden back out in Connecticut, the most reliable, like we always had sighting, well, not always, we've had sightings of mountain lions in Connecticut by people who mostly are from the city, from out of the area. They weren't hunters, they weren't fishermen, they weren't outdoorsmen. And, when you get a person like that who has outdoor experience, Will's he's a four-wheeler, he's out there overlanding, he's camping in the woods, he's hunting, he's fishing, he's been out there. Those are the people that, in my opinion, they know what's out there. And when they see something that's completely off the mark, you really got to take it to heart, because they're the folks who are out there and they're doing those things, and they know what's out there and what's not.
They're the ones seeing the thing, and it's his encounter and what he's seen. So, and it doesn't seem like Will's trying to get famous off this. This is what he'd seen being out in the country. Yeah. So, exactly. I definitely, the hunters are very compelling to me. It'd be different if some guy living in his mom's basement all of a sudden started writing up some creepypasta stories. It's different. These guys are firsthand, eyewitnesses on this. So,
exactly.
Yeah, Tom,
so
I'm extremely honored that you came on to co-host. I look forward to doing more. But before we get off, I want to do a special shout out to everyone that joined in. Brown Dwarf, thanks for joining us, brother. Aloha. Thank you for listening in. Eddie, for joining in on here. The Pink Dahlia. She's awesome. She said that she used to live in, was it Tucson? Let's see. I think let me pull up her comment really quick. I was trying to read them, but I didn't want to interrupt the guest as he was telling his encounter. So, yeah, Pink Dahlia said she used to live in Tucson and had backpacked all over the Southwest. I wonder what was around. Yeah, I think Arizona doesn't get as much because a lot of people, like you said earlier, that we almost want West Coast and North American Dogman Project and the USDF to be a place where people can go and not face the ridicule of, and now with social media at our fingertips, I think it's easier to, at least go tell someone and write it out and just get it out there. And then, like you stated earlier in the interview, a place where we can document this and go from there, just be a hub or somewhere to where people can just go and feel comfortable about, hey, I just saw a freaking werewolf. Are these things real?
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, you're the eyewitness. You just tell us. So, but yeah, I believe the Pink Dahlia. There's a lot of stuff out there that's still unexplained.
Oh yeah.
My mom jumped in on the comments. Thanks, Mom, for joining.
Hey, Shane's mom.
That is awesome. Yeah, she loves the interview. So salute to Brown Dwarf for showing up again. Yeah. So like I said, brother, this was a huge honor and first time ever having a co-host. So I really like this. You have it's good to have hitting the interview with two different perspectives. You asked like temperature wise, and I think you did incredible, Todd. I look forward to doing more interviews with you, brother.
Yeah, thanks for having me as co-host, Shane. I really enjoyed it. I look forward to some more. I know we've got another person that I've talked to. I know, Shane, you're going to talk to her soon. I've spoken with her. She's got some really interesting encounters that she had in West Virginia. I'm not going to mention her yet because we're still hoping to get her on for an interview, and she could share some of those encounters with us from the eastern part of the country. And it doesn't make any difference where they come from, where the encounters are, and if we can share them with everybody and we can dig into this thing and try to figure out what the hell is going on, then like I said, the closer we'll be to solving this mystery.
Yeah, exactly. Like you said, whether it's on the East Coast or in the South, I mean, just because our name is West Coast Dogman doesn't mean we only talk about the encounters on the West. We talk about it. It can be on a global perspective. So we just, like you said.
Yeah, but for all the folks out on the West Coast, if you're seeing something, let us know, and you put it on West Coast Dogman or NADP or US Dogman Federation, wherever you put it. Guarantee, you're not going to get ridiculed on that, because we're not going to put up with it.
Exactly, and then I put it at the bottom of this the stream. That here's our 3 Facebook pages. We have West Coast Dogman Project. We also have the newly formed and created United States Dogman Federation, as well as the North American Dogman Project Region 1. So you can reach out to any of those, or you can go to any NADP page and tell your encounter there, and we can, but that doesn't mean it has to be only through West Coast. We can document it and send it to Jody Cook, and pretty much file it away and go from there, and get it out and spread as the phenomenon continues to grow. Well, here we are. That's what we want to be, and that's what the tagline for West Coast. The answer is out there.
The answer is out there. We just gotta work it and figure it out, and eventually, maybe we will.
Yep, that's exactly true, Todd. Well, brother, I appreciate you coming on and being co-host, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.
Roger that. Thanks a lot, Shane.
Thanks, brother. You have a good one, okay?
You too. Take care.
Thanks. Bye. That was awesome. First time having a co-host, you guys. So our next one, Todd is actually talking to an individual about coming on in the near future, but we're going to have Josh Turner on April 6th to talk about his Dogman encounter. I'm super stoked about that. And then the week after that, we're going to have Carlito Castro, the Region 4 Director for the North American Dogman Project, to come on and talk about Dogman. Really looking forward to that. So thanks again for everyone that showed up. We'll catch you on the next one.
This is 10% luck, 20% skill, 15% concentrated power of will.